The city of Hartford, Connecticut may be far from Eurasia, but the distinctive onion dome of Samuel Colt's Armory, a prominent landmark along Interstate 91, recalls that colorful entrepreneur's business dealings in Russia, where he once presented Tsar Nicholas I with a gold-inlaid Colt Model 1851 Navy revolver. Another landmark that once connected Hartford and Russia was the now lost headquarters of the Rossia Insurance Company. The building may be long gone, but its iconic sculpture, called Mother Russia, has made a lasting impact on the city. Hi, this is History with me, Dan Sterner. Remember to hit the subscribe button as we delve into the story of a lost insurance building and its sculptures of Mother Russia and two Russian bears. Established in St. Petersburg, Russia in 1881, by the early 20th century, the Rossia Insurance Company was the largest insurance company in the Russian Empire. Rosia opened its first American office in 1904. Focusing on the reinsurance business, the American branch rented space in the Royal Insurance Company Building on William Street in Manhattan. Its American operations were directed by manager Carl F. Sturhan, a native of Hanover, Germany, who learned the insurance business in Hamburg and then in England before coming to the United States in 1902. As the Hartford Courant newspaper described it, it is largely through his efforts that the entire American business of the Rossia Company has been secured, unquote. The American office first opened in New York City in order to establish its presence in the country, but Sturhan had long hoped to move to Hartford, a prominent center of insurance where expenses could also be reduced. In 1911, Rosia moved into rented space in Hartford in the National Fire Insurance Company Building on Pearl Street. In 1913, the company purchased land at the corner of Broad Street and Farmington Avenue, then the site of a house that had been the home of lawyer Horace Cornwall from 1880 until his death in 1904. Selecting a location west of downtown was part of a trend of insurance companies moving away from the city center. Rosia was the first company to be located west of the railroad tracks, but soon the Hartford and Etna would erect substantial buildings on Asylum and Farmington Avenues. Started in 1913 and completed the following year, the Rosia building had its main entrance on Broad Street, 40 feet back from the sidewalk. As the Hartford Courant described it, quote, clerks and minor employees will enter through doorways opening towards Farmington Avenue and the south, but the officers and the general public will find admission through the principal entrance on Broad Street, unquote. When the building opened, the company had a staff of 63 employees, only 8 of whom were men. Sturhan donated a small section of land at the corner of Broad Street and Farmington Avenue to the city so it could widen the curve along the street there. Designed by Hartford architect Edward T. Hapgood, the building was constructed of light gray pressed brick with Indiana limestone for the trim and for the grand entrance pavilion. Approaching from Broad Street, there was an initial flight of 7 steps leading to a platform, followed by a narrower flight of 10 steps leading to the entrance. At the start of the second flight of stairs were a pair of bronze lamps of classical design. The first set of stairs sat between 2 granite pedestals, on each of which sat a sculpture of a Russian bear. They were created by the German-American sculptor Edmund Schulte-Beckham, employing an old European technique that used thin sheets of hammered bronze. In a succession of letters, Beckham and Sturhan worried about accurately depicting the true size of a Russian bear. Finally, the sculptor found a model in the form of a bear named Tsar, who was popular at the time at the Bronx Zoo. If you are enjoying this video, remember to hit the subscribe button. The two-story building also featured a dome that was 40 feet in diameter, which made it the second largest dome in the United States at the time. The completed dome did not end up being quite as prominent as it is depicted in this preliminary drawing of the building. Architect Hapgood modeled the Rossia's neoclassical style on the Petit Trianon, the residence at Versailles that had been Marie Antoinette's private retreat. He also incorporated elements like the window pediments and the decorative urns along the rooftop balustrade from the insurance company's head office building in Russia, which is still standing at 37 Bolshaya Morskaya Ulitsa in St. Petersburg. That building is crowned by a statuary group that depicts Mother Russia with a scroll in one hand and a raised shield in the other. Representing the security that the insurance company provided, she is protecting a woman and child and an older man with a beard. A new version of the sculpture was created in 1914 to crown the Hartford building. Like the bears on the building's front pedestals, Hartford's Mother Russia was also the work of Edmund Schultz Beckham. Shown here outside his shop in Bronxville, New York, it depicts the man holding an anchor indicating marine insurance, with his other hand on a money chest. Next to the woman and child is a sheaf of wheat. Mother Russia's shield, instead of being raised as in the original sculpture in Russia, is at her side in the American version. The Rossia Insurance Building stood for 55 years. In the wake of World War I and the Russian Revolution, the assets and liabilities of the company's United States branch were taken over by a newly chartered domestic entity, the Rossia Insurance Company of America, which continued under the direction of Carl F. Sturhan. The company was renamed the Northeastern Insurance Company of Hartford shortly before his death in 1939. The company eventually sold the building to Hartford's water utility, the Metropolitan District Commission, in 1948, and the company moved to Iowa in 1950. The MDC used the building as its headquarters for 20 years. In 1965, 2 years before the MDC moved out, one of the decorative concrete urns along the roof began to crumble, and pieces fell to the ground below. For safety, the commission had all of the urns removed by workmen who smashed them with a sledgehammer. The MDC left the Rosia building in 1968, and the entire structure was demolished the following year. The 1974 YWCA building stands on the site today. But what became of Mother Russia and the two bears? After the building was demolished in early 1969, the bears remained at the building site for 3.5 years until the YWCA donated them to the Hartford Children's Museum. I'm not sure of their history between June 1972, when they were moved to the Children's Museum in West Hartford, and 1987, when they found a new home adjacent to the University of California, Berkeley's College of Engineering. The bears were donated as the gift of Anselmo John Machi, class of 1936. The two bears that are there now, though, are not the originals. Because of the hammered bronze technique used by Beckham, the original bears were hollow and had begun to deteriorate, so in 2001 they were recast in more durable cast bronze. Unlike the bears, the Mother Russia sculpture would have a much longer association with Hartford. After the building came down in '69, the statue remained in storage in Wethersfield until it was sold at auction in 1976 for $10,000 to John Rimsha. Mother Russia attracted attention from passers-by that summer as the sculpture rested on Rimsha's lawn on Asylum Avenue. But 6 months later, the sculpture had a new home atop Rimsha's new bar and restaurant at 191 Ann Street called the Russian Lady, a name inspired by the iconic sculpture. The original Russian Lady was a well-remembered fixture of Hartford's nightlife. until it closed in 1997. The original Mother Rossia was sold at auction in 2002 for $46,000 to a new owner in New York State. In 2011, a new iteration of the Russian Lady under new owners opened at 191 Ann Street. Since the 1914 statue was gone, a new sculpture was created based on the original. Since then, the venue has continued under various owners, most recently reopening in 2024 as the Lady. I don't know where Hartford's original Mother Rossia is today, but its prototype can still be found in St. Petersburg, and its recreation still watches over Ann Uccello Street today. The recasted bears can be found in Berkeley, California. But the building these sculptures were created for is long gone, having existed for 55 years. Rossia Insurance had branches in many other cities around the world, including, of course, Moscow. While the Hartford building later became home to the MDC, the company's headquarters and apartment building in Moscow would become the home of another three-letter organization, the KGB. Known as the Lubyanka Building, and much altered and expanded, it is still the headquarters of the KGB's successor, the FSB, today. Please subscribe and check out my other videos. There's one about the old Hartford Public High School, which was just across the street from the Rosia Building. And there's one about another great Hartford insurance building, Travelers Tower. Thanks for watching.